There are times when you can just look at a finished project and tell the people behind it shifted gears partway through. That is the vibe I get whenever I look at Akshan, the rogue sentinel. Released in 2021 for the Rise of the Sentinels storyline, Akshan is a character who honestly feels like he was shoehorned into the event for the sake of it. His role in the story is redundant, he offers nothing significant to the plot, and his own story arc has basically hit a wall for the foreseeable future. To be honest, there's really not much in the way of history here. Akshan is a relatively newer champion, and he doesn't even have a legacy to follow up on. He's basically Riot going back to their old conventions of making characters by picking an archetype, and then just turning that into a champion. In this case, a dashing rogue like Aladdin or the Prince of Persia. That's really where Akshan's personality begins and ends. Well, okay, that's not totally accurate. To be fair, this guy does have a bit more going on under the surface thanks to his backstory, but not much. Akshan was an orphan who grew up on the streets of a city called Marwi, where he made an enemy of local warlords by interfering in their enforcers' business. While Akshan managed to evade them for a while, he was ultimately found and beaten by said enforcers. To death, actually. Luckily, Akshan was also soon found by a woman called Shadia, the last sentinel of light in Shurima. She was also the owner of the Absolver, a relic stone weapon that could bring people back to life if you use it to kill their killer. Keep this in mind, we will come back to it later. Anyway, Shadia basically wound up adopting Akshan, who didn't realize that he'd actually died and took him on as an apprentice. Now, despite the goal of the Sentinels being to fight the undead, it seems like these two were more devoted to fighting the aforementioned warlords. Which, small side note here, feels a little off to me. I mean, if my understanding of the timeline is correct, Azir and Xerath should already be vying for control of Shurima at this point. So the fact that we just have all these random warlords ruling over disparate parts of the desert doesn't really seem to add up. But either way, the two Sentinels continue to tick off these local warlords, even though Shadia knows a powerful harrowing is on its way. Somehow. Eventually, Shadia and Akshan start to gather weapons from their Sentinel vault, where Akshan learns about the Absolver. Shadia tells him that such a power is forbidden and should never be wielded, only to immediately expose her own hypocrisy by revealing that she used it to revive him. Unfortunately, this argument is never truly resolved as Shadia winds up being murdered herself. This prompts Akshan to go on a revenge quest with the Absolver to find and kill Shadia's murderer, in the hopes of returning her to life. It's during his revenge quest that Akshan is found by Lucian, and maybe Rookie as well, depending on the version of the canon you want to go with. He's initially disinterested in anything happening with the Ruination, concerned only with his quest to revive Shadia. But the Sentinels eventually talk him into helping for the final battle. Again, depending on the version of the canon you follow, he is either the entire reason they win, or he serves no purpose beyond just being an extra fighter to fill out the party's numbers. After Viego is dealt with, though, Akshan returns to Shurima and resumes hunting warlords, putting him right back where he started. Alright, so that's Akshan's entire story out of the way. Let's just address the big issue here. I hate the Absolver. It is a weapon clearly designed with a gameplay functionality first and a story function second. In-game, you can use it to instantly revive your teammates by killing the champion that killed them. In the lore, this thing is convoluted. Its backstory is barely explained beyond possibly being of Ishtali origin, and the rules it operates on are vaguely defined at best. According to Akshan's bio, the Absolver specifically revives murder victims, but it also can only revive a killer's most recent victim. In other words, if you are murdered, and then your killer goes on to kill someone else, this theoretically means that you can no longer be brought back, even if the absolver kills the culprit. So, by this logic, it's very much possible that Akshan's quest is already doomed. First of all, Shadia was killed, presumably, by a warlord. Warlords are responsible for killing a lot of people. That's kind of the whole point. So, unless literally no one else has been killed by that specific warlord since Shadia's demise, then even if Akshan finds and assassinates the right person, it might be too late. Although, this raises another issue. See, warlords, by definition, have armies. They have enforcers and officers. This is something that Akshan knows personally. Oftentimes, if a warlord or conqueror wants someone killed, they'll use the forces at their disposal to do it. So, theoretically, shouldn't Akshan be searching for the soldier or assassin that killed Shadia? You know, the one who actually did the deed and not the one who gave the order? Well, yes and no. As we learn in the visual novel, the absolver can work on technicalities. See, Gwen and Cinna are killed at one point in the story, as they were both only alive thanks to the fragments of Isolde's soul inside of them. When Viego removes those fragments, Cinna dies and Gwen returns to being a lifeless doll. However, Isolde then prompts Akshan to shoot her, and this revives both Gwen and Cinna because, even though Viego is the one that killed them, Isolde is also technically their killer because her soul leaving them is what led to their deaths, despite Isolde not doing so voluntarily. So yes, if you are even technically responsible for someone's demise, killing you with the absolver can bring that person back. This leads to a lot of absurd hypotheticals. Like, if I catch a cold, and then I accidentally get someone else sick and they die from that cold, does that mean that killing me will bring them back? Or could you just shoot the germs themselves with the absolver? How far does the butterfly effect go? I could go on, but I think you guys get the point. The absolver is a dumb weapon whose existence is barely justified by the one or two versions of the canon in which it becomes a deus ex machina to stop Viego's plan. A plan that was already doomed to fail, mind you, because the soul was never going to accept the ruined king anyways. But the problems don't just end with the absolver. Oh no. Akshan's biggest problem is that, like I said before, he is redundant. His whole thing is that he's obsessed with trying to revive someone close to him, which is supposed to make him a mirror to Viego. Except Lucian already does that, and he does it better. The comics even go out of their way to throw the parallels between these two in your face. Viego himself even acknowledges Lucian as someone who knows the pain of losing your life's love. What is even the point of having Akshan in this story? Is it just because you brought Cinna back, so you needed a guy whose loved one is still dead to be an even closer parallel to Viego? Yeah, I don't buy that reasoning. At all. Hell, the one thing that Akshan had going for them is that he had to make a choice between letting his teacher's potential killer go or letting the Black Mist run amok. Akshan realized that Shadia wouldn't want him to sacrifice the world for her, so he goes with Lucian to join the Sentinels in their assault on the Shadow Isles. This could have been an interesting direction to go in, but as I said before, Akshan is not giving up on his quest. He's basically putting the whole Shadia thing on hold and is going to return to hunting warlords as soon as his work is done. This might hold some stakes if he was given a time limit, like the warlord having others after their head or possibly planning to kill someone else so Shadia isn't their most recent victim, but yeah, now we're stretching. Akshan is still 100% motivated by the woman he's trying to bring back to life. The only difference between him and Viego is that Akshan doesn't have to destroy the world to do it. So yeah, Akshan is a mess. While I can't claim to know every step of the development process behind this character, I am quite certain that he wasn't meant to be a Sentinel, or at least not fully. Akshan's whole thing is being a dashing rogue who hunts down and punishes scoundrels, as he calls them, villains who abuse their power and trample the weak. He's basically a Shuriman Robin Hood type figure, but rather than fighting for the little people, Akshan is just trying to bring his dead mentor back to life. Like, they try to establish early on in the bio that he's selfless and heroic, but his current story arc still has him acting out of purely selfish motivations. It really does feel like they had two character concepts. A dashing rogue and a rogue sentinel they wanted to include for the Sentinels of Light event, and because they were further along developing the former, they just decided to combine the two. Now, again, I do not know for sure if that's what happened, and I have nothing to support my claim other than pure speculation. Still, if we were going to go have a whole rogue sentinel added for the event, I feel like the concept should have been executed much differently. Maybe have them be like an old veteran who left the Order behind after their fall from prominence, or someone pursuing a vendetta against a particular wraith, not unlike how Lucian basically went AWOL for a while to hunt Thresh. Honestly, Lucian himself could have filled the role of Rogue Sentinel just fine if Senna hadn't been brought back. But maybe that's a topic for a different video. So, in conclusion, Akshan is a rushed, underdeveloped character crammed into a story that didn't need him, purely for the sake of further hyping up the mess that was Rise of the Sentinels. I don't imagine Riot plans to do anything with him for a long time, especially since there's not much you can do with him other than have him either give up on his quest or actually succeed. And in the case of the latter, well, I hope you're all ready for Shadia to be brought back and become a champion just like Senna was. Yeah, no, this guy's biggest problem is and always will be redundancy. And there's really not much I feel you can do short of a complete reboot to salvage him at this point. But what do you all think? Do you like Akshan as he is, or is he a fundamentally flawed champion? Leave your thoughts and comments down below, and I'll see you all next time.